You remember there was a video that was circulating many years ago about a guy who created a car that runs on water. And then this car that ran on water, I mean, he apparently had a viable engine and it was really working. And then he had a heart attack. And as he was dying, he was saying, "They killed me. They killed me." And then he died. Nobody heard from the water engine again. Meyer said that his invention could do what physicists say is impossible, turn water into hydrogen fuel efficiently enough to drive his dune buggy cross-country on 20 gallons straight from the tap. Wow. He took a sip of cranberry juice, then he grabbed his neck, bolted out the door, dropped to his knees, and vomited violently. I ran outside and asked him what's wrong. His brother Stephen Meyer recalled, he said, "They poisoned me." That was his dying declaration. You ever see the jaguar tripping out on ayahuasca? Jaguar high on DMT. To trip, you watch this jaguar eat these leaves. Or they're eating the ayahuasca vine. It's having some sort of a psychedelic effect on them, and the jaguars eat these leaves, and then they're just lying on their back, and their pupils are dilated, and they're tripping balls, like obviously tripping balls. Like to see a jaguar rolling around on the floor in the middle of the jungle after eating leaves, it's very strange. Look at him. He's tripping. So this jaguar, he seeks out these plants, eats them, and then he's just lying there like, whoa. The thing about the people who take that ayahuasca too is they see jaguars. It's part of the vision. Jaguars that are out there tripping balls too.
I think the ocean creatures are very bizarre.
How about those giant squid that they found on that oil tanker?
One come through?
Giant squid. So it's in the Gulf of Mexico. They caught it at a depth of 7,800 feet. They spotted this thing with these insane long appendages. Look at this.
Oh, whoa. Yeah, that's different. I thought that's not what I thought you were talking about.
Look at the fucking length of those. What are those things that dangle from it? What'd you call those things?
Tentacles? Legs?
Tentacles, legs. What is it? But look at the legs on it. It's like an insect.
Yeah, that's very bizarre.
The thing was enormous. It was really long. So strange. And this, before they got this video footage of it, they didn't even know something like this was real.
And there's like a lot of those where you get these deep sea cameras and you're like, oh, there's a species we haven't ever documented before.
There's definitely been conspiracies that have been put together and executed. And these conspiracies have greatly affected the American people. Another one that they were planning on was Operation Northwoods.
Yes.
Operation Northwoods was one that they were planning on blowing up a drone jetliner, blaming it on the Cubans. They were going to arm Cuban friendlies and have them attack Guantanamo Bay. And they were going to sacrifice American troops and American lives. And they were going to do this in order to get people to be excited about a war with Cuba.
Yep.
This is a real thing that was signed by the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It was released by the Freedom of Information Act, and it was vetoed by Kennedy. So we know that there were people, at least in 1962, that were planning on shit like this.
Yeah.
So that's a real thing. And the idea that that just went away and no one does that anymore.
It's crazy.
I don't believe that. I think there's most certainly evil people in all fucking sectors of life. What did you think about all that? I'm sure you know about Operation Midnight Climax. Yeah. Operation Midnight Climax was a CIA-funded program where they dosed up Johns. They created brothels and dosed up Johns with LSD without their knowledge, and watched them and filmed them and studied them.
It fell under the sort of umbrella of this MK Ultra, which is public knowledge. It was all based around chemical substances, use of drugs, creating false memories, deleting memory, influencing the behavior again of individuals. There were a variety of projects that fell under this MK Ultra. Where this went off the rails was testing on unwitting subjects, things such as LSD. And those subjects ranged everything from in federal prisons to state mental hospitals.
Have you looked into any of the connections between ancient religions and psychedelics?
I went in deep enough to know that there are a lot of very serious scholars really believe that it was experience of psychedelics may have nurtured the religious impulse. You know, where do you get the idea of a beyond? Where do you get the idea of a heaven or a hell, if not from some altered state of consciousness? You know, people talked about visiting the underworld in Homer's time. So how did they do that? Was it dreams? Dreams don't have the authority that psychedelic experience has. There's something about psychedelic experience that has this. It's not just an opinion. It's not a fantasy. It's something real. It's objective truth, which has been in culture for thousands of years. We know whether you're talking about the Amazon or Africa.
You ever see that Bohemian Grove thing? That is absolutely 100% real. No, it's not. So what, Brian? It's people dressing up like wizards, burning an effigy in front of an owl god.
Same with Burning Man.
Bro, this is so different than Burning Man. It's the government. It's people at the highest levels of banks. It's all these different famous people. There's a bunch of crazy, really rich, influential people that went to that Bohemian Grove. But this is very extreme, where they're chanting crazy shit and they're putting hoods on and they're burning an effigy that's supposed to be a sacrificial person, but it's straw in a bundle. And they do it in front of,
doing that?
They talk about the owl god Moloch. Okay, these are multi-millionaires. Have you ever seen it?
Yes.
You are.
You haven't seen it. He hasn't seen it. He hasn't seen it.
I'm sorry.
He hasn't seen it.
Look at this. This is the hidden footage that John Ronson and Alex Jones got from Bohemian Grove in like the fucking late 90s.
I was gonna say, how old is this?
I think
shit?
like, was it early 2000s?
Pretty cloudy.
Shut the fuck up. You can hear them. They're lighting things on fire. There's the Moloch, the owl god.
This is one of a whole category of maps which are extremely hard to explain. You need a chronometer that will keep accurate time at sea with the motions of a ship, and it's just a plain fact that our civilization did not invent such a chronometer until the late 18th century. Suggests that somebody during the last ice age was mapping the world and had mastered the technique of calculating longitude. Our civilization hadn't discovered Antarctica in 1818, so they couldn't authentically put it on a map. The problem is that Antarctica appears repeatedly on these much older maps, and it appears in the right place. So what all of this suggests to me is that the world was mapped and explored by a global seafaring culture with a level of technology that was at least equivalent to ours at the end of the 18th century during the Ice Age. Above the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid are 5 further chambers, and these chambers are roofed and floored with granite beams that weigh about 70 tons each. 70-ton beam is equivalent in weight to 35 large SUVs. There are hundreds of them. These 70-ton granite beams have been elevated to a height of more than 350 feet above the ground and carefully and precisely placed in position. It is very hard for archaeologists to explain how that was done. You can say, oh, perhaps they built a ramp and hauled the stones up the ramp. But then you have to confront basic laws of physics. You can't haul a stone weighing tens of tons up a slope that exceeds 10 degrees. Then you start doing the calculation. How long a ramp do I need with a 10-degree slope to get to 350 feet above the ground? And the answer is you need a fucking long ramp.
When you look at the Vatican, they have a lot of fucking Luciferian shit. Look at the sculpture of the resurrection. Pull that up, the sculpture, and you tell me if that's Jesus. Look up this is in the Vatican Cathedral. This is their main church. That's supposed to be Jesus right there. This is supposed, it looks like a Slayer album cover.
Well,
that looks like Halloween. It's an art. That's in the Vatican. That's the Serpent Cathedral.
That's dope.
Come on, man. That's a serpent.
Should do a show there, Joe.
Look at the fangs and look at the eyes.
That is a serpent.
Come on.
Look at the tongue that comes out of the
Vatican's
fangs.
been pretending they're into Christ. They're not into Christ. Look at the fangs.
Give it up,
That's
bro.
the Vatican.
That's
the
inside of a
How is that Jesus? How is that Jesus right there?
Brian?
The Vatican has the biggest telescopes in the world. They have one called Lucifer.
I don't think
Think
so.
about that. They have a telescope called Lucifer. It's
No, they don't have the biggest
it's
telescope
not
in
the
the
biggest
world.
telescope.
You've gone too far.
You think that's
Eddie,
how crazy is that,
you've
right?
gone
How about
too
it's
far.
real? How about it's real?
What happens to Skull and Bones?
That Skull and Bones is the Illuminati Germanic death cult that now set up chapters all over the U.S. Yale to set up a German secret society of the Illuminati, which then has become one of the dominant secret societies. And in there, they do actual satanic rituals. They get in coffins. They do simulated human sacrifices. They have gay sex as part of the ritual. They bathe in huge facilities of feces. This was a
Skull and Bones they're doing that stuff now.
absolutely. I know somebody
Wow.
broke into it, but
Wow.
But inside they go grave rob. They've got Geronimo's skull.
Yeah, George H.W. Bush supposedly stole Geronimo's skull.
This is one of the craziest conspiracy theories. The Malaysian Flight 370 that disappeared with 239 passengers on it. Until this day, nobody knows what happened. So this was a very common flight. They were flying from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. And as they're flying, the pilot communicates with the tower. And the last words he says are, "Good night, Malaysia."
Malaysian 370, contact with Japan 120.9.
1 minute and 43 seconds later, right here, it disappears off of all the radars. For a plane to disappear off a civilian radar, it can only mean that the plane lost complete power or that it was manually turned off. But if a plane loses power, it wouldn't have been able to travel as far as it did from right here the moment it lost signal. Some people think aliens were behind us or a black hole, but I think it was a cover-up, part 2.
Scariest conspiracy theories in the world that will seriously change your life. In this series we'll be going through various conspiracy theories from different tiers. So this right here shows a list of the conspiracy theories in the world. At the top you get the most well-known, not so scary ones, to right at the bottom which will literally change the way you see the world. So if you're easily scared, do not watch this series and just keep on scrolling. But let's kick off part 2. So today we're speaking about the Titanic. Now there's lots of theories about what happened to the Titanic, but this one is huge. So the theory is that the Titanic never hit an iceberg, and that it actually sunk for a completely different reason which you will not believe. So let's go. So we all know the Titanic did sink, because that's a fact. But photos came out from before it sank showing this. Literally a burn area, and that is where the boiler room was. You know, all fires and stuff there, so maybe a fire broke out. Now, this is where it gets even crazier. Several people who were on the Titanic but survived it said this. They were all interviewed on various different grounds, and not one of them mentioned anything about an iceberg. No one said anything about it. However, several people said that there was a fire. A fire broke out in the boiler room before they set sail, and they thought maybe that had something to do with it. But when questioned again about, was there an iceberg? No one said yes. They all said, no, there was no iceberg. So what actually happened? This series is about to get extremely messed up, so make sure you hit that.
Why does it seem like the further we go back in history, the more advanced we were? You're telling me people were so primitive they took a hammer and chisel and made this? This temple right here was made in the 11th century in India, so it's about 1,000 years old. Look at the structure and the design. Look at the detail on these carvings. Almost as if it was made with a laser. I mean, it just looks like laser cut precision. What's interesting to me is even with our modern technology, we can't even replicate what they built back then. How is that possible unless they had technology that was better than ours? This right here is a real hieroglyph in Egypt. It looks like some type of generator or quantum computer or big old light bulb or something. What if the ancient people were a lot more advanced than us? That's usually how human advancement works. Human technological advancement is not linear. It's a roller coaster. We go to the Golden Age, then the Dark Age, the Golden Age, then the Dark Age. This is known as the Colossus of Rhodes. It's a 104-foot bronze statue. We went from the Golden Age to the medieval Dark Ages. Scientists still can't figure out how the pyramids were built. They can just guess. So are we in the post-apocalyptic era?
Scariest conspiracy theories in the world that will seriously change your life. So as we know, this right here shows all of the world's scariest conspiracy theories. As I'm sure you know, in this series we'll be going through from the least scary to the ones that will literally change your life. So once again, if you're easily scared, do not watch this video, just keep on scrolling, trust me. Now with that said, let's kick off part 7. Stuff is about to get mental. Right, so this one is to do with NASA, I mean, pretty obvious. Now of course we all know NASA, big space company. Well, actually I don't think you do. So what you probably didn't realise was that NASA actually started out by looking into the oceans and exploring Earth. They had nothing to do with space. Because you know, only 3 to 4% of the oceans have been discovered, so they wanted to explore it. But stay with me, it gets mental. So now of course we all know them as a space company, so what happened? Well, literally overnight they went from exploring our Earth and the oceans to exploring space and wanting to get us all off of Earth as quickly as possible. So what the hell did they see during their investigations in the ocean that made them want to get us off of the Earth? Now make sure you hit that follow button, because I mean, stuff's only going to get crazier.
Movie scenes that reveal the truth.
We have 47 cases and 8 deaths as of 5 this afternoon. It's a weekend. These numbers might be low. People are staying home for a couple of days, see if they get any better.
So at this point, I think we have to believe this is respiratory. Maybe fomites, too.
What's that, fomites?
It refers to transmission from surfaces. The average person touches their face 2,000 or 3,000 times a day.
2,000 or 3,000 times a day?
3 to 5 times every waking minute. In between, we're touching doorknobs, water fountains, elevator buttons, and each other. Those things become fomites.
Is this something we want to release to the press, respiratory and fomites?
And how's the public going to react to that?
Hard to say. Plastic shark in a movie will keep people from getting in the ocean, but a warning on the side of a pack of cigarettes...
We're going to need to walk the governor through this before we start to freak everybody out. I mean, we can't even tell people right now what they should be afraid of. We tried that with swine flu, and all we did was get healthy people scared. It's the biggest shopping weekend of the year.
I think we need to consider closing the schools down.
And who stays home with the kids? People that work at stores, government workers, people that work at hospitals. When will we know what this is? What causes it? What cures it? Things that keep people calm.
What we need to determine is this. For every person who gets sick, how many other people are they likely to infect? So, for seasonal flu, that's usually about 1. Smallpox, on the other hand, it's over 3. Now, before we had a vaccine, polio spread at a rate between 4 and 6. Now, we call that number the R naught. R stands for the reproductive rate of the virus.
Any ideas what that might be for this?
How fast it multiplies depends on a variety of factors. The incubation period, how long a person is contagious. Sometimes people can be contagious without even having symptoms. We need to know that too. And we need to know how big the population of people susceptible to the virus might be.
So far, that appears to be everyone with hands, a mouth, and a nose.
Once we know the R naught, we'll be able to get a handle on the scale of the epidemic.
So it's an epidemic now. An epidemic of what?
We sent samples to the CDC.
In 72 hours, we'll know what it is. If we're lucky.
Clearly, we're not lucky.
The world's scariest conspiracy theories. Here we have conspiracy theories from the most well-known to the darkest, and today we're going to be starting off with tier 1. And the first conspiracy theory is Michael Jackson may not be dead after all. And this theory starts out with Michael being at his own funeral in disguise, wearing prosthetics and makeup to cover up. Believe it or not, but Michael has done this before to disguise himself from the paparazzi. There was also no open casket at his funeral, which means nobody ever saw his corpse. Now in this video, you can see the ambulance that took Michael to the hospital, but when they got there, a figure that looked almost identical to him hopped out looking perfectly fine. Also, his daughter uploaded this photo in 2016, and in the back seat you can see a figure that looks like Michael sitting there. Finally, Michael's middle name is spelled differently on his death certificate than it is on his ID and even passport.
The top 5 scariest conspiracy theories. At number 5, we have the Dyatlov Pass incident. In Russia during 1959, 9 healthy people died from a ski truck with no explainable details. Investigators revealed the tent ripped from the inside out and strange wounds were found on the victims' bodies. Some of the bodies were found to be highly radioactive. Coming in at number 4, we have MK Ultra. In the 1950s, the CIA began to conduct secret research into mind control. They wanted to see how the use of certain substances such as LSD and other extreme psychological experiences affected the human brain. They performed it on these subjects without their consent. At number 3, we have the Men in Black. This theory revolves around the fact that Men in Black are said to turn up after every UFO sighting and have done so since the 50s. At number 2, we have the Roswell incident. In 1947, the military retracted a statement saying they captured a flying saucer, and instead it was a crash weather balloon. At number 1, we have the Philadelphia experiment. During World War II, it's believed scientists were working for the U.S. Navy to make a ship that could be invisible. They say that ship, the USS Eldridge, docked in Philadelphia during 1940.
Most Dangerous Conspiracy Theories, Season 2. This picture represents conspiracy theories from the most well-known to the darkest. Some of these theories say that once you learn the truth, there's no return. For this series, we're going to be picking a couple from each category until we reach Tier 10, the point of no return. Alright, Season 2, welcome to Tier 1. Today, we're going to be talking about Ouija boards. A Ouija board is a board printed with numbers, letters, and symbols in hopes of communicating with the dead. The history of the Ouija board is just as mysterious as the game itself. A woman named Helen Peters claimed to be a very strong psychic and actually invented the board herself. Eventually, Helen Peters' brother-in-law named Elijah wanted to get these things patented so that he could sell these everywhere. Helen Peters and Elijah traveled everywhere trying to get this patent, but the offices said they couldn't release a patent unless they had proof of it working. But consequently, nobody in these offices wanted to even get close to the board for unknown reasons. Until one day they traveled to Washington, D.C., and the chief of patent walked in the room and said, "You don't know me and I don't know you." Then he said, "If this board can tell me my name, I will sign the patent for you right now." The board apparently spelled the man's name. He walked out of the office, looked at Helen Peters and said, "You got your patent." Years later, Helen Peters and Elijah had a falling out, and Helen said she no longer wanted anything to do with this board. Elijah, on the other hand, continued selling these boards until one day he fell off of a 3-story building. He actually survived the fall, and some bystanders saw his body laying in the road. They picked him up, put him in the car, and they hit a bump in the road, and his broken rib pierced through his heart. After that, the family sold the rights to the board, and all the way up until Helen Peters' death, her last words is, "Do not play the Ouija board, it lies." And now you can buy a Ouija board from any store, and they're marketed to children. So the question remains, are these boards just a hoax, or was Helen Peters trying to warn us of something much darker? Make sure to like and follow for Tier 2.
What's a conspiracy theory that you 1,000% believe in? I'll go first.
The O.J. Simpson's Khloe Kardashian real daddy. Period. Let's get to the evidence. Before y'all start with the, "Oh no, it's the hairdresser." No, bitch. No, the fuck it's not. Let me tell you why. Those who don't know, Kris Jenner wrote in her memoir that she cheated on Robert Kardashian Sr. around the time she got pregnant with Khloe, resulting in this. One of these things is not like the other. And this is Sydney Simpson, right? That's OJ daughter he had with that lady he had killed. Now why the fuck she look more like her sister than her damn sisters do? Here's another picture of Sydney for context. Stop fucking playing with me, bro. One of these things is not like the other. And then Khloe posted this picture today talking about some, "I never wear my natural hair." Well, bitch, that natural hair looks real mixed to me. And not for nothing, we see a lot of white passing mixed people. We see it on this app every day. But this is a football player's baby. It's her daddy, nigga.
What's a conspiracy theory that you 1,000% believe in?
I don't know if this is exactly a conspiracy theory per se, but I am 1,000% convinced that we are not supposed to eat corn. Cows have 4 stomachs. They can't digest corn. You go to Chipotle, you get corn salsa. You go to the bathroom, you see corn salsa. High fructose corn syrup is processed and put in pretty much everything to make it highly sugary and highly addictive. Any animal that you give corn to, they go crazy for it and become addicted to it. Corn can be processed into a fuel and it burns pretty efficiently, yet we eat it. And I still don't know why.
What's a conspiracy theory that you 1000% believe in?
OJ didn't do it. It was his son Jason who had a history of knife violence and was very vocal about how much he hated Nicole. I think that Ron was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But don't get me wrong, I still think that OJ was involved. I think that OJ found out that Jason was gonna go and hurt Nicole, and he went there to try to stop it, and that's why his blood's at the scene. Obviously, OJ wasn't able to stop it, and so they both fled, and OJ helped Jason cover up the evidence. That's why the gloves didn't fit, and that's why OJ went on that long car chase, so his son could have time to get rid of evidence while the cops were distracted.
What's a conspiracy theory that you 1000% believe in? I'll go first.
Nah, I got you, Brody, and I ain't even gonna hold you. Women came first, and a black woman at that. Black women are the only organism on this rock with a genetic catalyst called the Eve gene capable of making beings lighter or darker than themselves, no matter what their creative counterpart looks like. On a chromosome level, XX comes before XY, even on a Punnett square if we was mixing plants. Women have an XX chromosome, men have an XY. If we're going to keep it biblical, the story of Adam and Eve does not start with Adam, it starts with Lilith, who was the first young black goddess. If we're going to keep it scientific, if I was an architect, I would not build the key first. I would build that house from the foundation up first, make sure it was complete and secure before I make the key to open that door. Women are the house, men are the key. Women are the only beings in this dimension that can bring spiritual vessels or spiritual beings in the physical vessels in this dimension. So why are we playing this game? All the misogynistic and patriarchal manipulation to our history and culture. Why?
What's a conspiracy theory that you 1000% believe in?
Okay, hear me out. It sounds weird. Mattress Firm is laundering money or doing something super, super sketchy. Mattress Firm likes to cluster their stores together. Just look. This is in my hometown. These are not even a minute apart from each other. There's 3 of them on the same road. Same city, same thing. And here, example again. Outside of my city, this is in Texas, there are 10 on the same road. I don't know how spread out these are, but 10. I've never been in a Mattress Firm my entire life. There can't be that much of a need for mattresses. The weird thing too, and you'll just have to take my word on this, when you drive past a Mattress Firm, there's never cars in the parking lot. And if there is, there's like maybe one. Maybe one. The Mattress Firm website says there's 2,500 stores across America and about 8,500 employees. That means there should be at least 3 people working a store. On top of that, they've disclosed accounting irregularities. Oh my god, I could talk about this all day.
What's a conspiracy theory that you 1000% believe in?
That ancient civilizations on Earth were far more advanced than we're being told, and that one of them possibly even thrived before our oceans even existed. Stay with me. In the spring of 2013, a gentleman was sailing his yacht around the Azores Islands, an autonomous region of Portugal, when he discovered a large pyramid underwater. They would find that this architectural marvel was 60 feet tall and bigger around than a football field. So naturally, I had to dig deeper, and as I did, I kept seeing pictures of it circled on Google Earth. And of course, I had to go find it for myself. It's right here. But as I was checking it out, I thought to myself, well, where there's one, there's got to be more, right? Well, look right above it. 1, 2. 2 more pyramids. From there, it was over. I was up all night, scanning the entire ocean floor. And what I found absolutely blew my mind. That there were large clusters of what could be potential pyramids at the depths of the ocean all over the world. And I mean thousands of them. Check part 2 for more.
What's a conspiracy theory that you 1000% believe in?
Prepare to have your mind blown. Now, this isn't a conspiracy theory, but there are some creepy similarities between the assassination of JFK and Lincoln. So let's get to it. Lincoln was elected in Congress in 1846. Kennedy, 1946. Lincoln became president in 1860. Kennedy, 1960. Both presidents were shot on a Friday. Both presidents were shot in the head. Lincoln's secretary was named Kennedy. Kennedy's secretary was named Lincoln. Both were assassinated by Southerners. Both successors were named Johnson. Lincoln's successor was born in 1808. Kennedy's successor, 1908. Lincoln's assassinator was born in 1839. Kennedy's, 1939. Both assassinators were known by 3 names. Lincoln was shot in a theater called Kennedy. Kennedy was shot in a car named Lincoln. Booth ran from a theater and was caught in a warehouse, whereas Oswald ran from a warehouse and was caught in a theater.
What's a conspiracy theory that you 1000% believe in?
So every year allergy season rolls around and more people are starting to learn about botanical sexism, which is basically that city planners, who are mostly male, decided that female trees are too messy. And so they planted overwhelmingly male trees that release pollen, but not enough female trees to absorb the pollen. So we have more pollen floating around in the air than ever, which leads to increased allergies. But what everyone somehow forgets to add is that the reason female trees are messy is because they produce fruit. And I high-key believe that botanical sexism is driven by capitalism and making sure that people who live in urban areas don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables that aren't provided by corporations.
What's a conspiracy theory that you 1000% believe in?
Hitler. No, not that he wasn't real or that any of the heinous things that definitely happened didn't happen. None of that bullshit. You know that hypothetical? It's the first thing you do if you got time travel. Oh, go back in time and kill Hitler. A bullet in his own head? In a bunker?